Ladies and gentlemen, dear Nicholas, dear Olga, dear John, Your Excellency, Ambassador Ekaterini Nassika, I'm deeply moved by your generous words, and I'm grateful for the great honor you bestowed upon me tonight. I was born in Athens, as John said, on 10th December 1956. I graduated from Philofaith State High School in 1974 and from the Department of Economics, University of Athens, 1978. I obtained my postgraduate degrees, an MPhil in 1980 and a DPhil in 1982 from the University of Oxford. My doctoral thesis aspired to ground macroeconomic theory in mathematical macroeconomic models. I started my academic career at Oxford University at St. Catherine's College, right after my doctorate, where I taught economics as a lecturer and also conducted research in the field of the oil mines. In fact, I was the first research fellow at the then 1982 newly founded Oxford Institute for Energy Studies. This played a pivotal role in shaping my future career, as you will find out very shortly. It seemed as Oxford would become our permanent home, as both my wife, Lina, she's here with us tonight, who also obtained her DPhil in neurobiology from Oxford and began her academic career along with me, and I were perfectly happy with our lives in Oxford. My sabbatical leave from the University of Oxford to fulfill my military service in Greece, and above all black, was what changed our plans. After completing my military service, I was about to return to Oxford when I accidentally came across a friend from Oxford, the now renowned Greek economist Dr. Platotinios, who arranged for me an appointment with the then 1986 leadership of the Greek Ministry of National Economy, Minister Kostas Simitis, and then with the Minister Yannis Stournaras. Out of politeness, and as Plato wouldn't take no for an answer, I did go and met them. They suggested that who would have thought that I should extend my leave from Oxford University, stay a little longer in Greece, and help them with the economic stabilization program that had been launched in 1985, and more importantly, to join as an energy expert the team which led by the late Anastasis Peponis, then Minister of Energy and Industry, negotiated a gas supply contract with the then Soviet corporation Gazprom. To cut a long story short, they convinced me to stay. I went back to Oxford and extended my sabbatical leave for 1 more year. Lina did not agree at the time. I'm not going back to Greece, she said. At least not until you return to Oxford for good. We agreed that this would be the best. Deep down, I had always wanted to come back to Greece, unlike Lina. So I returned to Athens without her, as a special advisor to the Minister of National Economy on sabbatical leave from the University of Oxford. And that was it. I really loved to pair academic work with policy making. I decided to find a permanent job in Greece, something that didn't take long. Soon, I joined the University of Athens after a vacancy announcement at the Department of Economics. Meanwhile, the late Dimitris Kalikias, who at that time was governor of the Bank of Greece, told me that he would engage me as advisor to the Bank of Greece once my contract with the Ministry of National Economy ended, if I decided to stay in Greece and leave Oxford for good. I went back to Oxford, only to resign. Lina and I had finally decided to take the risk and quit prominent academic jobs in Oxford, London, and Bristol to return home to Greece. The words of my superiors at the University of Oxford, the late Sir Patrick Nairn, he was provost of St. Catherine's College at the time, and the late Robert Mabro, he was president of the Oxford Institute for Energy Studies, as they were bidding me farewell, are still ringing in my ears. You must be mad to leave Oxford. They did not make me change my mind. I left. Lina and I did not regret leaving, but now we both feel a huge debt to the University of Oxford, especially to the true meritocracy of the system. We worked hard, we got top-notch doctorate degrees, and found top research posts at a very young age. Greece has honored me with very important posts, both in the public and the private sector. I was fortunate and privileged to serve at the economic and financial sectors of my country and to cooperate with the governments of 6 prime ministers, Andreas Papandreou, Kostas Simitis, Panagiotis Pikramenos, Antonis Samaras, Alexis Tsipras, Kyriakos Mitsotakis. I have never abandoned my university career until my retirement last August. During the last years, I was mentoring and supervising doctorate candidates and co-authored research papers with them. The years as a research fellow in Oxford included, I successfully completed 42 years of academic teaching and research. My esteemed colleagues at the Department of Economics, as well as the rector of the University of Athens, honored me a few weeks ago with the title of Emeritus Professor. Being an academic cum policy maker thrilled me. This wouldn't have been possible had I stayed in Oxford, and has been a huge asset in my professional life, even though it required endless hours of very hard work. As an academic, I quickly realized the limitations of academic thought, if not tested in the arena of economic policy. As a policy maker, I soon became aware of the shortcomings of an economic policy that is not grounded in economic fundamentals. Turning to the economic policy arena, my first job in Greece as an advisor to the Minister of National Economy, Kostas Simitis, and his Deputy Minister, Yannis Stournaras, in the context of the so-called Simitis Stabilization Program 1985-1987, concerned the restructuring of public enterprises and organizations, as well as the design of an incomes policy based on productivity growth. Sadly, this plan was never implemented as Kostas Simitis resigned. Over the same period, I also worked on the gas pipeline project and the import of natural gas from Soviet Union to Greece. In my capacity as an advisor to the Bank of Greece, 1988-1994, I worked with 2 governors, Dimitris Chalikias and Efthymios Christodoulou, as well as with the then economic advisor, Loukas Papademos, on monetary policy matters. As chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors at the Ministry of National Economy, 1994 to 2000, I was involved in the design and implementation of economic policy measures in preparation for Greece's entry into the euro area, and I represented the Greek government in the negotiations for Greece's participation in economic and monetary union, first under Prime Minister Andreas Papandreou, and subsequently under Prime Minister Kostas Simitis and Minister of National Economy and Finance Yannis Stournaras, who was responsible for the overall coordination of the project. As Chairman and CEO of Emporiki Bank, 2000-2004, I negotiated and implemented the first stage of the strategic partnership with Credit Agricole and contributed to the establishment of a number of jointly owned subsidiaries. As Managing Director of Kappa Securities, 2005-2008, I gained vast experience in investment banking and capital markets, which would later prove very useful in all the public offices I was entrusted with. As Research Director and later on Director General of the Foundation for Economic and Industrial Research, the famous IOVE, 2009-2012, I was responsible for the design and implementation of research projects, as well as for managing the foundation. This experience offered me valuable insights into key industries of the private sector. In my term as Minister of Development in the caretaker government of Panagiotis Pikramenos in 2012, I signed the approval of several investment projects under the development law. As Minister of Finance in the Samaras government, 2012-2014, I contributed to the restoration of the smooth program refinancing of Greece by the fulfillment of all policy commitments, the partial restructuring of Greece's sovereign debt, a public debt buyback on favorable terms, the implementation of reforms, the normalization of public finances and the economy, a shift to a primary surplus at the general government level after many years of persistent high deficits, a drastic decline in Greek government bond spreads, Greece's return to international bond markets, and the recapitalization of systemic banks. As Bank of Greece Governor, 2014 to date, a post to which I was appointed, chosen by Prime Minister Antonis Samaras in 2014, and for a second term, Kyriakos Mitsotakis in 2020, I contributed, along with the Bank of Greece staff, in keeping Greece into the euro area during the first half of 2015, in the effective imposition and management of capital controls in 2015 and the full withdrawal in 2019, in ensuring the smooth provision of emergency liquidity assistance to Greek banks during the crisis, in the recapitalization and resolution of systemic and non-systemic banks alike, while fully protecting bank deposits, in cleaning up ailing banks and strengthening competition in the banking sector, and in the organizational restructuring of the Bank of Greece itself. In addition, as member of the Governing Council of the European Central Bank, the ECB, I have been participating in the formulation and implementation of the single monetary policy, both in times of crisis and in a very low inflation environment, as well as in conditions of high inflation after the COVID-19 pandemic and the invasion of Ukraine, while also having served as chair of the ECB's Audit Committee. Looking back, I'm immensely gratified to have played my part to the best of my ability and with the invaluable help of my highly competent associates in all my public engagements, first in Greece, joining the euro area, second in Greece remaining in the euro area under the extremely adverse circumstances of the debt crisis, and third in Greece becoming, without exaggeration, a success story. The Greek economy is beyond any doubt an international success story over the past few years. Government bond spreads now compare favorably with those of other member states. Economic growth is considerably higher than the average euro area growth rate. Major fiscal problems, debt sustainability, as well as bank restructuring and recapitalization issues have been successfully resolved, while bank deposits have been fully protected. Not a single euro has been lost. How did Greece turn itself into a success story? In my opinion, this can be explained by the following 6 reasons. First, a very painful domestic fiscal and structural adjustment during the 3 adjustment programs. Second, a strong will of people to stay in the Eurozone. Third, generous debt refinancing by our peers at very favorable terms. It was the biggest assistance given in history. Fourth, the ECB waiver when Greece did not have investment grade status. Fifth, the NGU RRF generous participation. And finally, and most important, orthodox fiscal, financial, and structural policies are being pursued over the last several years. Over the coming years, the Greek economy is expected to continue to grow at higher rates than the rest of the Eurozone. This is particularly significant development as it will reinforce the convergence of the country's real per capita GDP with the European Union average. The primary drivers of economic activity will continue to be investment, thanks in part to European funds, and particularly the Recovery and Resilience Facility, the RRF, and consumer spending due to the increase in real disposable income resulting from higher employment and lower inflation. However, in spite of the undeniably positive prospects of the Greek economy, we should not lose sight of the economic challenges lying ahead. The most important challenge for Greece is the large current account deficit of the order of 6% of GDP in 2023, despite the very substantial fiscal adjustment and the improvement in labor cost competitiveness. This is mostly due to the fact that Greece lags behind most European countries in terms of structural competitiveness, despite significant improvements in recent years. The rest is explained by Greece's higher economic growth compared with its trade partners, compounded by weaker investment, relatively low structural competitiveness inevitably weighs on productivity and living standards over the long run. Investments play the most decisive role in shaping the future course of the economy, as well as in transforming the growth model with an emphasis on improving public infrastructure, boosting productivity, driving innovation, increasing production of internationally traded goods and services, effectively dealing with climate change and facilitating the green transition. Increased production of internationally traded goods and services leads to higher exports and import substitution, and thus the reduction in the current account deficit. Investments as a percent of GDP have increased in recent years, owing to particularly strong investment activity in the 4 years 2021-2023. Business investments have fully recovered to pre-2010 levels. On the other hand, it is striking in mind the European Union average. Total investment as a percent of GDP remained well below the European Union average at 15.2% compared to the EU 22% in 2023. In order to improve structural competitiveness, it is also essential to implement a broad range of ambitious reforms aiming at addressing structural weaknesses such as delays related to justice, bureaucracy in public administration, and lack of digital skills. At the same time, it is crucial to eliminate any remaining restrictive practices preventing markets from being competitive by removing barriers to entry and opening up goods and services markets to competition. These reforms will help attract foreign direct investment as well as facilitate the participation of Greek companies in global value chains, in turn leading to the adoption of new technologies and innovative production methods that will enable Greek companies to offer high added value products and knowledge-intensive services. And a healthy and competitive banking sector capable of financing business and households is crucial. There has been a marked improvement in banking sector fundamentals over the past decade. Profitability, liquidity, capital adequacy, and loan portfolio quality have all improved dramatically. New healthy and adequately capitalized banks have been created, forming a so-called fifth banking pillar, while the investment of the Hellenic Financial Stability Fund's shareholdings in the 4 systemic banks has been largely completed and being successful. Still, the sector's resilience must be further strengthened, including through quantitative and qualitative improvements in the capital base of the banks, while further reducing non-performing loans burden close to the EU average, and by improving the quality of services provided to businesses and households. This will enable the sector to contribute even more to the financing of the real economy. Bank financing of business investment needs can be further bolstered by utilizing the full range of national and European financing mechanisms, such as the RRF, the European Investment Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and the Hellenic Development Bank. In a competitive global environment, the path towards effective and efficient implementation of reforms passes through broader political consensus building. Despite the substantial progress so far achieved, structural reforms should not be a taboo issue for political forces. Broader political consensus can enhance accountability as well as the ownership of reforms and provide lasting solutions. Sticking to ideological red lines hampers building consensus around tried and tested answers to problems such as tax evasion, lawlessness and impunity, shortcomings in educational standards vis-à-vis the rest of Europe, and delays in the delivery of justice. Only when documented policies can provide sustainable solutions and usher the country to a new era of growth and prosperity. With regard to public finances, which is and should remain our #1 priority, given the fiscal challenges ahead and the need to maintain our fiscal credibility, I would like to point out that the revised fiscal framework in Europe imposes control on government net expenditure growth, while also ensuring that any fiscal space created on the revenue side will be used only to reduce public debt. These two conditions are opening up scope for rapprochement and synthesis between political parties towards consensus building on how to prioritize public spending and investment and improve their efficiency, combat tax evasion with a view to broadening the tax base and ensure a fairer distribution of tax burdens. At this point, let me elaborate on the disproportionate heavy burden of defense expenditure borne by Greek taxpayers relative to taxpayers in many other euro area countries, which is linked with the protection of European borders and in particular Greek-Turkish relations. The burden of such expenditure, which primarily concerns imported military equipment, falls exclusively on Greek taxpayers. What is lacking today is a coherent and effective European security policy in the area of defense, as also suggested by the famous Draghi report, aimed at maximizing the benefits of defense investment and minimizing the disproportionate costs entailed by defense equipment, that is, through defense cooperation programs. At the same time, efforts should continue so as to find points of convergence in Greek-Turkish relations, given their bearing on Greece's economic and social program, stability and security. A very important fact to note is that the dialogue between Greece and Turkey, which started in 2023, has already delivered significant results with regard to airspace infringement over the Aegean Sea, managing migration flows, and especially economic cooperation. But above all, it has created an environment of stability and security for citizens. It is no coincidence that while 2 years ago, Greek-Turkish relations, together with the rising cost of living, were citizens' primary concern, nowadays, as suggested by opinion polls, citizens are still interested but not worried. This has had a strong positive impact on the stability and outlook of the Greek economy. I believe that an agreement on the settlement of our dispute with Turkey or the delimitation of maritime zones would be more than welcome, unquestionably paving the way for long and sustainable peace, as well as mutually beneficial economic cooperation, which will produce economic growth and welfare in the region. The complexity of modern societies, characterized by frequent crises, multidimensional challenges, heightened uncertainties, globalization, and the ubiquitous presence of social media has, in my opinion, rendered traditional political ideologies, such as left and right, inadequate to describe today's political classes. Therefore, the left-right dichotomy sounds rather outdated. Rather, in modern democracies, the critical divide is between liberal and populist policies, as experienced in Greece after the collapse of the two-party system and the emergence of new political formations in 2012. Citizens must demand from traditional and new parties alike a minimum degree of commitment to dialogue and compromise, even if this may require institutional reforms in the context of our parliamentary system, potentially involving amendments to the Constitution. Such changes should be set in motion in the coming years. The broader the policy agendas the parties manage to agree upon, the brighter the economic outlook will be, thus helping to increase welfare. Besides, the country's European orientation largely entails a convergence of views on the direction to be followed by national economic policies within the Economic and Monetary Union. In closing, in light of the hard lessons learned from the recent economic crisis, I believe that the so-called systemic Greek political parties have come to realize the country's political and economic stability, as well as European path, as essential pillars. This realization creates a unique opportunity for fostering a consensus political culture in Greece, which will facilitate the sharing of political taste, hence the effective implementation of necessary reforms. In my opinion, consensus on economic policy matters should compromise for four keys. First, commitment to fiscal responsibility with continued achievement of primary cyclical adjusted budget surpluses of 2% of GDP every year. Second, commitment to safeguarding financial stability, that is maintaining the robustness of the financial system and protecting deposits. Third, commitment to economic convergence by closing the investment gap, as well as to advancing the appropriate reforms and upgrading the institutions. Fourth, bringing Greek-Turkish relations and the associated positive economic potential into the agenda. Thank you very much. Very welcome.